Hello and welcome to the SMEFocus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. I'm your host this week to highlight an aspect of UK manufacturing and in particular SMEs. My guest today is Neil Clifton, a business strategy consultant and recruiter, business owner and formerly the owner of a toolmaker and subcontracting machine business. Hi Neil, welcome to SMEFocus.
Morning.
I outlined your varied mix of experience, so can I kick off by asking you to tell us a bit more about your background, your interest in manufacturing, I guess university, and maybe even why you went to the second best school in Worcester?
Well, I think it probably started when I was about 7 or 8, and I used to. My dad had his own manufacturing business, and I used to go and work with him on a Saturday morning. When I say work with him, I'm actually sweeping the shop floor and going to get the sausage sandwiches for the guys. And then we got round to my granddad's, and he was an engineer as well. And I was just brought up around manufacturing really as I grew up. I then went to university, studied an engineering degree at Oxford Brookes, and really it went from there. As for the second best school in Worcester, I think it had first class results and certainly has produced some pretty decent entrepreneurs.
Well said. It's as if we practiced that bit.
Yes, almost.
So you grew your former business, Cube Precision Engineering, from 6 people up to 48 staff, a £6 million turnover. Can you tell us about that journey and maybe also pull out some things that you learned and tips that you'd share?
Yeah, so we started in 2009 with 6 people, and we bought the assets of a business that had gone into administration. And we had one client who said, if you can get the doors open, then we'll give you some work, which got us through the first couple of months. But the biggest problem that we found was trying to get funding for the business. Obviously, cash flow is king, and trying to grow a business, particularly in manufacturing, particularly when the business had been in administration and we couldn't get credit, cash was what was going to make the success of it. But it was a really interesting journey. It was really good fun most of the time. We had some fantastic blue chip clients, the likes of Rolls-Royce Aerospace and JLR, working with the world's biggest manufacturers. It grew reasonably quickly. And if I look back, probably the best place that it was at was when we were about 25 people. It was profitable. Yeah. It was great because we had no management structure. So me and my business partner were sort of working on the shop floor and making the decisions with the customers. And it was a real good family feel. But of course, a lot of stakeholders are driven by the need to grow for revenue, because then they can lend you more money to help you grow. And it's a bit of a vanity project, isn't it, really, revenue? It's the bottom line that makes a business a success. So, several things that I learned, cash being one. Luckily, we had a great FD who was on top of everything, who had the trust of all of the stakeholders. So that was really important. I think one of the big things I learned was the people that get you from sort of 6 people to 25 people are not necessarily the same people who get you from 25 to 50 people. There's a lot of people who like that, who go on that journey, that initial journey with you, and enjoy being part of a smaller team. And when it gets a bit bigger and it takes more man management, I think some of those people who'd started the journey with us didn't really enjoy it quite so much. And we did see that a couple of them left, but after about 3 or 4 months, they came back. But it really is the people that make or break the business. We ultimately concluded that we could teach people skills, but values was something that we needed to understand at the hiring point. It was an interesting way to grow the business, because we became very popular because of the size of machinery that we had quite quickly. But it was just managing stakeholders' expectations, and managing those people who then ultimately manage the people on the shop floor. Okay. But probably Biggest tip is just the change at every stage of the growth, and the quicker you can adapt to it, the more successful you'll be.
Okay, cool. We've used the word "was" a lot of times, unfortunately. So, Cube Precision came to an end, which I think you hinted at, or I hinted at. Can you tell us how that happened, and unfortunately, what the economic drivers were that forced that to happen?
COVID, Brexit, and the war in the Ukraine. Energy bills went from £12,000 to £48,000 a month. When COVID came, we had a really good order book, one of the best order books we'd had in the history of the company. But once we'd got through that work, there was nothing following it up. JLR, we had some work from Rolls-Royce. We worked for a lot. We on average, we had about 120 jobs on at any one time, and they range from sort of £2,000 order value to 800 to £1 million. So managing those, but the order book, just no one was making anything. JLR weren't making cars. We used to do a lot of repairs and modifications for them, and so they weren't using their tools, so they weren't breaking them or wearing them out. So it was the three things really. And if you have them in a decade, it's quite tough to manage. But in the end, it happened in 4 years. And then the final blow was we did a lot of R&D. We were waiting for a significant amount of money back from HMRC, and they delayed the payment, and we took the decision that it just wasn't feasible to continue trading.
Okay. So that prompted a bit of a change. Some would say that you moved to the dark side because you've moved across to recruitment. I'm guessing that's closely associated with your business strategy consulting business as well, NEM Consulting. So can you tell us about those two businesses? Yeah,
well, when Cube finished, when you own and run your own business, no one ever approaches you to go and work for them, because they just assume that you'll never leave, and generally you don't. And hopefully the business doesn't end like it did. But when it did, I had several suppliers and a couple of customers come to speak to me about sales strategy, because that was my role within Cube. It was the commercial director running the business as well, but really it was my job and my history post university has been in sales. So I had these people come to me, and they were going through a difficult time as well, for various different reasons, because the manufacturing industry, the particular industry we worked in, wasn't very busy, and they never really had to go and do any sales, and they'd never had a sales strategy. At best, they had, in many instances, account managers who would just deal with the orders as the regular customers sent those orders across. They'd never had to go out and chase work, which is something that we always had to do at Cube, because there weren't many of us in the marketplace, but a lot of the work went to China and India. So it was a real struggle to convince these big OEMs and tier one suppliers to use UK manufacturing. So I started doing some consultancy, and then that quickly ran into a friend of mine who's been in recruitment for several years, said, "You've got a lot of contacts in the manufacturing industry. Why don't we go into business together? You're helping support some of these businesses already. Why don't we help finding some staff for them?" And I thought, my initial thought was, having sat the other side of the desk, as long as I can get through to people to explain my experience of the last 15 years, that's got to add value to them. And that's what we always try to do at Cube, is add value to the customer. And that's what we do at PH.
Okay. I guess that's a big differentiator. I mean, we've all sat, I'm not sure if we've sat talking, we've taken phone calls from recruitment agents who promise to know everything, but just don't, and have never lived the life that we've lived. So that must be a big differentiator for yourself. How have you found the first year of trading?
Well, I've got a couple of other friends in recruitment, and they said it's probably the worst year in the last 10 you could have started a recruitment business. The big challenge has been exactly what you've just said there, Mark. It's getting to the person, getting through the gatekeeper to be able to explain why and how I can add value. And for those businesses which I can do that for, that's why they buy into using us as their recruitment partner. Because they know that I've seen it from the other side. So it's been a really interesting year for learning. It's been a successful year in terms of finding roles. And I think initially we were looking at, I mean, we do sort of source welders or account managers or people in the front office. We recruit across a lot of the business, but particularly since the start of this year, I've had more inquiries from people who are buying businesses and needing to replace an MD or need a new FD. And I'm getting referrals from accountants and private equity houses now, because these people don't know manufacturing, but they do know that I understand that process and know what I'm looking for.
Okay, this is quite exciting. I guess that is the perfect fit to your niche, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing going into a role, but going into transform a business is a different skill set. So I guess you're uniquely placed to sort of try and spot that talent in others.
Yeah, I believe so.
So cool. This show in its title has SME, so obviously it focuses in on SMEs, and I guess we touched a little bit in terms of SMEs are probably historically terrible at sales strategy in particular. Can you tell us some sort of, what are your experiences, what are your thoughts and observations about recruitment maybe for SMEs?
Particularly recruited salespeople is very difficult, because a lot of businesses that I've seen on the who I'm working on strategy side, as I mentioned earlier, they don't have a sales team. What they have are account managers at best, or the MD will have had a relationship for 20 years with several customers, and it's a trusted relationship. So recruiting proper salespeople who are going to go out, explore new markets for you, look at building networks and getting revenue from new sources, they're very hard to find. And they're also, when you do find them, the skills don't necessarily translate from one industry to another. And even in manufacturing, if you've been selling machining hours, let's say, on a machine, it doesn't necessarily mean you can sell machining hours for another company, because they could be different products. So it really is quite difficult, but you can teach sales techniques, and generally the best salespeople have done courses on that. But what we look for is resilience, relationship building, and really the drive from within. I mentioned that you can't really compare like for like sales figures for previous businesses that they've worked at. But I think the biggest thing I see when people are recruiting salespeople in particular, and this is definitely true with SMEs, probably because cash is tighter, is they do it when the order book's diminishing, and they'll wait a couple of months until the order book is down to a month or so, let's say, or it might be a couple of months depending on the lead time. And then they'll say, right, we need sales, we need to employ a salesperson. It doesn't happen. It certainly doesn't happen in complex manufacturing solutions, because you need time to build the relationship with the customers and establish credibility. And we found that once we could get people into the factory and show them the skills that we had, then we were still probably 3 or 4 months away, because we had to wait for the right project. And that process may have taken 3 or 4 months. So the biggest mistake I see is people trying to hire a salesperson for them to bring immediate results.
Yeah, I think we've all been customers or whatever where we've seen the sales guy with that degree of panic as well, haven't we? That they're new, and you can almost feel the panic in them, that they've found themselves with a hole and they're being expected to turn around something they don't really understand. And then either you don't want to take the risk, or I guess some people also take opportunities. So yeah, interesting. Okay. So moving to another aspect of your CV, and I shouldn't say the one that really interested me, but the one that certainly interested me. You run a business called Brisket Brothers, so it makes me hungry even just saying the words. So congratulations on the name. Can you tell us more about Brisket Brothers?
Yeah, well, I've been into barbecue for 20 years. It's just the way I love to cook. And I had some success at a national barbecue competition, which sort of put me on the radar of people wanting us to do private events, which I did every now and again, but not to any great scale. And then 3 years ago, I got 3 business partners. We came together, we sort of all kind of knew each other, but we all brought different skills to the table. And we said, Will can get us, he's got a mobile bar company, he can get us into some events there. Josh, he's 20 years younger than me, young South African lad, but a really talented chef, loves barbecue. He wanted to get involved and do the cooking side of things. Then we've got former Worcester Warriors player Craig Gillis, who looks after all the logistics for us. So between the 4 of us, we thought, well, look, we can get into some events. Why don't we give it a go? But it was very much focused on high welfare, high quality, the best that we can afford to do. And it, like I say, started off as a passion project, and now it's a decent business in its own right. We have luckily been able to cook for some well-known celebrities, which then gets you into the world of that. Members of the royal family, we do a lot of shows, we do a lot of corporate events, which probably our favourite really, because it doesn't matter if it rains, people are still going to be there and you still get paid. Whereas some of the events you do with the weather in this country can't always, you turn up in a field and you can't always guarantee people are going to turn up. But it's just good fun. It's there's a lot that I learned from growing Cube that we've spent the last year growing Brisket Brothers, and that's very much around the culture of when we bring staff in and how we train them and how we make them part of the business, but also that piece I was talking about earlier, the vanity of revenue, and we're very specific on what events are good for us, what events don't work for us, and how we talk to people about their expectations. So we've been very lucky. We've got some really good staff. We've got 4 of us who are absolutely committed to it, who really enjoy it. And the great thing, like not many other businesses, is we'll turn up at an event, say at the 3 Counties Showground, and people want to be there to have fun. They're not there to be miserable about things. So automatically you're winning. Excellent.
Okay, well, talking about food, I want to show sort of aiming for a weekend audience. It almost seems the point to just walk away with lovely thoughts of food. But I've got to ask you a very cliched and traditional question that we always ask at the end of these shows. So what have you got planned for 2025 and what are your hopes for the year ahead?
Well, on a macro level, I hope, and I won't get political about it, but I hope we get some strong leadership from the government, because across all 3 of the businesses, we need support. We need people to be generating wealth and employing people, particularly in the recruitment. That would help, but we need it for the economy as well. But across the 3 businesses, PH Recruitment, like I say, we've had a really good start this year in terms of the level of candidates that people are asking us to look for. So that's something I'm really excited about. And then on the side of that, helping work with some of those on their strategy and sales side of things as well. Anything that I can bring to them to help them build some value to their business, particularly as things are quite hard at the moment. And then Brisket Brothers is really exciting for us. We just opened a takeaway in Stow-on-the-Wold last week, which has had great success, and we've finally got the pre-order system working. So that will go from strength to strength. And we've also got 3 new concepts that we're bringing out with bao buns, toasted sandwiches, really nice Cubana sandwiches, and then some really fresh rotisserie kebabs. So that, adding on to what we've got already, is going to keep us very busy. It means we'll bring more people into the team to manage the logistics, help Craig with the logistics, but also manage the staff as well. So yeah, an exciting year, and it's nice to have the opportunities to move between the 3 businesses and see how they can help each other.
Cool. So if people want to, I guess, feed their business with strategy or people, or more importantly, if they want to feed themselves, how do people go around contacting you? What's the best way to reach out?
Well, email address is neil@phcgroup.com. ch-recruitment.co.uk, or check out my LinkedIn profile, or the Instagram for Brisket Brothers is _Brisket_Brothers, and send us a message on any of those ways and I can get back to you.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, Neil. I'll wrap up by saying if anyone would like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or if they'd like to appear in a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth, Plus Automation. Cheers. Have fun.